just recently figured out that there is a association that provides a certificate for commercial film production and film production accountants.
Ooh.
There's a certification that you can get. I was like looking up different certs that you can get in the industry, and this one seemed like kind of legit. There's actually a film production accountant, which is kind of an interesting thing.
Why did you get into filmmaking?
Oh man, that's a heavy one.
Trying to get us on
All
topic.
Right. I love that. I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Why did I? Well, it all started when
I was born.
Yeah. No, I think, you know, I used to work at a tech company, and was fortunate enough to work on a team that did or created a product for coaching, and it was a video coaching application on iPhone early on when the iPhone had just began. And
you're not mentioning any names.
I'm trying not to mention any names.
Okay.
Yeah, on purpose. And that application like quickly became popular, became number one in the Apple App Store and the Android Store. And I had a chance to be on this team. And at the time, this was 10 years ago, I was, I was 26, 20. Well, I started on the team when I was 24. And then when it started to become popular, I was 26. And the primary goal of the app was really to provide the customers with a way to do video analysis for competitive sports. So gymnasts, baseball, golf, just every sport you can imagine.
Like watching film?
Yeah, watching film, analyzing it, drawing on it, recording your voiceover on it, adding music to it. Like it became like a production, right? But inside of that mobile application. And there's a need on the team for somebody to be a content creator. And based on my experience, I had a lot of different experience, but one of the experiences that probably helped me become that role or help fill that role was when I was a kid, I did a lot of skateboarding videos, and none of them are good. Please don't look them up, or we'll never reference there. There's one on a DVD, and it's embarrassing.
We are going to find that, by the way. I did not know that existed.
Yeah.
Cole.
Yeah. He's in the background already searching.
Got the thumbs up from Cole.
Have to find a way to play it also.
Yeah.
Cuts to Josh's skate video right now.
It's very amazing. It's very bad. Yeah, embarrassing. But so I think, probably a lot of filmmakers have that experience when they're young.
You got to make a bad one to make a good one, right?
You've got to make a lot of bad ones. And if you look at even the stuff that I was making 10 years ago, it was very bad, very bad. I had a chance to work with,
you see where you're going with this.
Yeah. I know where you're going.
That was a transition right there, but
yeah. Those reps, I think, early on really helped to inform, what I thought was, a progression in filmmaking. And, I know everybody has this experience, but I think early on I had that taste. I had that idea of like, I really want to make something like that. And one of the films that I had watched back then was, it was a film called Yeah, Right by Girl Skateboards. They put it out and they used, for the first time in skateboarding, a phantom camera to open this film, and it was super epic. I just remember like Eric Costin was in it, like a professional skateboarder at the time. It was like this really cool.
I think I've seen it actually.
Yeah, and it was like at the time I remember watching it in my buddy's like bedroom on a tube TV, right, and a DVD plugged in, and it was like this. The feeling, like I was like, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. And of course, we tried to recreate that. And then when I went to this tech company and worked on that mobile application, I continued to look at the other examples and tried to create that. I tried to create the other thing. I had a chance to work with Nick Woodman from GoPro. We worked with Red Bull. We worked with Microsoft. And like the things that I was helping to create or internally produce there were not quite meeting, not more than not quite. They were downright not very good. Like they were just not good. They weren't what I had envisioned, right? And that taste was like, I want to create that, but I don't have the skill. For some reason, I can't figure out how to bridge the gap, right? So, after that experience and having had worked there a few more years after that, eventually started learning how to bridge the gap and getting the skill set and putting the reps in, and just really, it's a factor of time and trying to bridge that gap between the skill and the taste that you have. And I would say, like, not even there right now. Like, I see things that other people are doing. I admire other production companies. I admire other filmmakers in the space. And I, number one, like, am grateful that I get to interact with those people, because I see, like, man, I feel like we could get there, you know, that the taste is still there, but the reps are still coming in, and we're still trying to make progress in getting there. And I think that is kind of how I got into filmmaking, and now I think where I am today, without a lot of context and story in between there. Maybe save that one for another time, but you know, I think for the purpose of discussion, like, I don't know, what do you guys think? Like, does that align with what you think from a, like, taste, getting into it? Like, there's no right way to get into it. And then when you do get into it, do your tastes align with your skill set? Like, it, you know, that was my experience. I feel like it's a common experience, but I don't know. You know, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think, you know, there's a look to student films, right? When you see them, and that's just because the experience, I think, is so little and unrefined, and doesn't mean there's not talent there. You see ideas, see creativity, but what it takes to pull it off, you know, it's everything from framing, composition, to lighting, to story choices, to cameras, equipment, I mean, all that stuff, right? So yeah, I do think that really only comes by reps. And yeah, I think to your point of, like, not feeling like you're there, I would say, like, in some ways I feel like we are, you know, in certain things, and others things that we aren't. We do a lot of different things, and I do feel like we have a certain amount of collective experience. And now, you know, the other thing is that we do is, like, we have collective experience in-house, but we also pull in, you know, so much talent from outside. Like, that network is deep. But I think it's one of the things that we've been talking about in the office a lot, right? We bring that experience and sensibilities that we've gained through the years, and a lot of times on bigger projects, to smaller jobs, and the producing side, or everything. It's just across the board. In what goes into being able to make something good, and in the commercial space, you know, being able to right size it, making sure it meets the customer's needs.
I had when you're saying that, just a funny anecdote is when I was first getting started, like Nate asked, is like, you know, what was that like? And I remember getting done with the project, and I remember thinking, like, oh, that sucks. You know, this thing sucks, and it's not good. It is not what I wanted it to be. I had all that excitement starting it. Like, it was just that curve, right? It's like, wow, this is going to be great. I'm going to get it to look just like this. It's going to be this, this, and this. And I got done, and I went to my mentor, and, like, you know, said, like, I was just super bummed with this. This thing sucks. This is not very good.
So there was no moment of where you, like, thought it was good. And then it starts, you have a little more time with it, and you realize,
then you realize it's not good.
It's like you get honest with yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there was definitely that moment where it's like, wow, this is going to be great. You know, like, you get into it, the edit's good, you're feeling it's like, this is good. And then I got to the end of it, I'm like, man, this thing is really bad. And I went to my mentor, and he's like, congratulations, you're a filmmaker. You know, like, that's really what it was. 'Cause it's like that is the process. I do think that is part of it, right?
Yeah.
You have to go through it, because most of the stuff that you make, especially early on, and, you know, even over time, is not good. It's
I
just
remember
not.
in a project early on where I was working with someone on this project, and it was something that we were hoping to show, almost a short film kind of thing, to a group of people. And we filmed it. We had it all in the can, was working through it in the edit, and had some roughs done. And he called me up one day, and he's like, he was really feeling dodgy. You know, it's like, I don't know how to say this, but, like, I'm just not sure we can show this to anybody. I actually I said, I'm thinking exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
I was right there with them. Like all enthusiasm, the vision for what you want to do, and then you get into it and it's like, this is not good.
It's not good. Yeah.
This is not good.
I would like assert that all good artists feel that way though. And I think that like the tension between, being confident in our capabilities and experience, which we are, and always chasing and always having an edge and kind of like a vision for what's next is a really good tension to be at, right? Like, I don't know, you think of any of like great painters or composers and ask any one of them, like, look back on your masterpiece. Now, I do think genius strikes every once in a while and someone goes, I think that might be the best thing I'll ever make,
Yeah.
Sometimes people have that experience where they go, that's it. That's the opus, right? That's my best work. But I don't think that's the commonality between us normal folks. I think like the chase towards something is like always going to be there. Even if what, the result of a work is completely appropriate based on resources, based on time spent, based on what it was supposed to be, there's always something in the back of your mind that you go, we could have tried that. Or I wonder how that would have worked out. Who knows if that would actually be better or what even equals what is good. That's a different conversation.
Right.
But I think the idea of always pushing the envelope, we're going to get into this a little bit later, but not just checking boxes and always just trying to figure out a way to kind of move forward and try something new or make it a little better than it's supposed to be or the expectation for it.
In software, they have the idea of like shipping it, right? And the whole idea there is to like be agile, get the software out there and then receive feedback on it and adapt and refine. And I think there is a worthy philosophy there of getting feedback on your work, getting it out there, because when you're getting the reps in and you push it out there, you're going to receive feedback, right? And oftentimes in I think our industry and our community, we have to solicit that a little bit more to get valuable feedback, and not all feedback is valuable. And so it's a hard thing to do from an artist perspective, right? It's a lot easier when you software or a product or whatever, you can get feedback and your identity is not usually tied to it. But in our space, oftentimes the identity is tied into the art, even if the art is not artistic. Now that's like a mouthful, but like what I mean by that is a corporate video or a brand video or, something where you're serving a client. Not always an art piece, right? Not always a passion project, not always like something that can really stand out, but sometimes your identity gets tied to it, whether that's in the edit or the cinematography or the producing or whatever it is. And you start to associate your value with that. And so getting feedback is very hard. And that's not the, at least speaking in my own opinion, I think you can get feedback and get more reps in as long as you can use that feedback to progress and bridge the gap between your taste and your skill.
I love it. I want to pause real quick and acknowledge what we're doing here. Welcome to the Clip and Clarity podcast. We're Taproot Pictures, and we're a filmmaking company, and we help people and brands share meaningful ideas through film. So we set out on a mission to demystify filmmaking and the process of making art through film, serving clients through film, and just wanted to acknowledge our esteemed guests behind their screens before we continue chatting.
I thought you were going to say we had like a sponsor or something.
That'd be amazing.
That would be.
Hey, I could get on that.
We need a coffee sponsor and perhaps a, per our opening remarks, a sparkling water sponsor.
Yes.
So
it's like the Clip and Clarity podcast, liquid death.
Yeah, exactly, dude.
And then and then cuts back to the
Anyways, love that.
That's my brain for you guys. So obviously today we're kind of circling around our theme. There's been a lot of talk in the office about what does it mean to really care for the craft of filmmaking? And it's a question that we often wrestle with. Again, being tasked with different asks from clients, different levels of creative flexibility on projects. I like the word that I kind of look to is like appropriateness. And that comes with the experience of doing a lot of projects and kind of and foreseeing kind of what this should be and what would be the best approach, not only as a result but based on a budget, allow to spend on a project. So just a kind of a topic that really has been on our minds is not just in the immediate past, but also kind of in general. It's just one that kind of comes up a lot in our industry.
Yeah.
So I guess I want to kind of tee this up, maybe asking both of you guys to respond. How do you balance caring for the craft of filmmaking? We've kind of separately shared a little bit about why we got into film with also like running a business, right? Like the difference between, like you said, this isn't just a product. This isn't just, A plus B equals C. There's art, but it's also business. How do you balance caring and running a business?
Yeah, that's a really hard one.
Or how do you think about it?
Yeah, budget drives so much, right? And the client has a number that they can afford to work with, and we look at that and say, okay, what can we do with that? What's the right thing to do with that? Because we always say there's a million ways to make a video or a film, right? All the different levels of skill sets that we get involved, and equipment, and cameras and lenses, and on, support tools. And I think that there's a lot of trust that's given us to right size it, like appropriateness, I guess is how you put it. Like that's what you're referring to. And so I think from the business side, it can get into a place where it's like, okay, we need to be able to make this profitable and service the client, and create a successful project and get out the door. And sometimes, I think you just feel like, in my words, like we're just executing. And sometimes people come to us with a vision or storyboards, and, other times we get, kind of wide open, playground to work with and come up with the creative, right, and fit a budget and that kind of stuff. But, I can feel that tension often of, hey, I know this is going to serve them. I know they'll be happy with it. This controls our costs. But there probably is something here that could plus us up a little bit, and this could be better. And, sometimes is it worth the conversation? Because you need to read the client if they want that feedback. Sometimes they kind of do just want you to execute. And then you have to consider the cost. Is that something that we can absorb? Or is this something that we need to push on a little bit? And so it's really, again, an experience kind of thing. There's just all these factors that go into that. Like, what is this for? Is this a broadcast spot? Is it regional, local? Is it national? Is this a social clip? What's the shelf life on this? Like all those things I think fit into that equation for me as I think about that. And, we talk about doing meaningful work and trying to add value that way in everything we do. That's another factor of like, how can we add value to this, and make it fit that objective, and again, not blow the budget, right, and keep the lights on, kind of stuff. So I don't know if there's a real answer to that, other than it's just there are lots of factors involved, and I think experience over time has taught when to push on a client, when to say, hey, this is good enough. I know we've had those conversations in house with editors, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, trying to make something more than what it is. Mm-hmm. And it's like, this is not your magnum opus. This is not your identity. This is not an art piece. This is a very functional piece of content, and that is what it needs to be. And we also, don't have unlimited budget on this. So this isn't a 2-day edit. This is about 4 hours. Right. Can you get that done? And make it good? It still has to be good. But there are other pieces where you're really getting hired to like produce the best, possible work. And that's a whole nother, conversation and level of attention. And, I think you feel more of the obligation to really push on, like, we could do this, we could do this, and kind of sort out where people are, on that.
It's interesting. It's almost like and not exactly, but it's almost as if the the ask and budget goes up, there's more responsibility to be kind of like pushing that envelope, because, you know, we want to deliver value based on a budget. So not to say that like lower budget stuff doesn't sometimes
There's
check
a much
the box.
bigger level of investment typically.
Yeah.
Right?
And typically
There's
people
correlation.
come to us at that level based on what we offer, not necessarily just trying to check a box on something. They're trying to, it's a major investment, right? They want to see some extra value based on just frankly a large amount of investment.
You got a big audience, right? With some clients, right? You can literally have a global audience, and not that anybody can't reach anybody, but like, no, we have a following, right? People know our brand.
There's an
that kind of thing.
expectation.
Yeah. Versus someone else that, you know, I just need this for the smaller purposes.
I love that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Josh?
Yeah. I mean, that resonates with me a lot, especially in the conversations that I have every day, and even the conversations we've had recently. Just processing that a little bit more, where I think like the care for what is in the frame is kind of how I like to think about this. Is what is going into that frame, whether that's on your iPhone or on the TV or on a computer, like what matters there to you. If we're serving you, the client, and whether you're an agency or we're working with you directly for your brand, what matters to you there, and why does it matter? That's really important. But at the end of that, it all comes down to us owning who's going to help make that. And from my perspective, what I think and what I get a lot of sense of, maybe gratification or what I do love about my job is creating the right team for what is in that frame. And yeah, some of those are corporate videos. Some of those are just, you know, what could look like execution. But I think the difference between how we think about it and maybe how somebody who's just running a business, somebody who's just like cares about like, yeah, we're just going to make this much on it. The difference is that if you care for what's in the frame, you're going to put the right people in the right position to use their skill, their gift the best. And I love that. I love that part of filmmaking. What is so cool about that part of filmmaking is that there are really talented people that you get to work with. You get to, depending on the job and depending on the budget, you know, your point, Carl, is like, yeah, budget levels vary and we can't afford sometimes the best of the best in that position, but maybe we know the right person for that job, for that position. And when you know the right people, and that comes again with reps and age and experience and all those things, but to get the right people in those places, that's really cool, because then you can really honor the work. You can really honor the craft. You can honor the creative. And then you're getting people that are putting everything into that frame for the budget. Doesn't matter if it's a 20 grand budget or a $2 million budget. Yeah. And there's probably more to unpack there too, with personality and values and character.
There's another whole side of that conversation. It just hit me when you were saying that. I mean, I feel like we, you know, the internal process on a job with a limited budget, let's just say that, which is every job, right? Like, I feel like we, you know, there's a lot of, you know, pushing back and negotiating and trying to make a budget work and maximize that and trying to treat, you know, vendors fairly. But I do feel like we end up bringing a lot of value to a lot of our jobs. Like we certainly have had the conversations in house where it's like, you know, that was a really good deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Are we giving too much
for the client? Yeah. Are we giving too much? And of course, you're always trying to build your portfolio and things like that, or
if you're
factors
not
into it.
That's actually good. Like if you're not asking that question though, as a business, like, are you even given enough? You know? And I think from a perspective standpoint, if you're running a business and it's all about the dollar per project at the end of the day, you're not honoring the craft at all, because it's just about the dollar.
Right.
And I don't know. I didn't get into this to not make good stuff.
It's like, that's the weirdest thing about this business is we all got into it because we fell in love with it.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes I'll even go back and like watch pieces that I just really love. And it's like, I just need to get back into that space again. You know?
Yeah.
Because you get caught up in the numbers and all the stuff. And it's hard to separate that. And then hard to keep it in front of you sometimes.
Yeah. It's like balance. I look at it like the scale, you know, of like the judge of one side you need to make the numbers work, which I know primarily falls in my area of responsibility when trying to go get a project. But then you need to have, that on the other side in balance of, can you honor this creative with that budget? And can you serve that level of quality? And I keep coming back to, it's really people. It's really like, not just your network, but again, like if we want to dive deeper, it is the character and the values that these people embody, I
even think about that in like the kind of the separation of roles, where you do have people that are more primarily driven by the budget, but you're bringing in people that are going to push the creative.
Yep.
Right. And so that give and take, and like that's a good tension to have.
Sometimes the sacrifice for a higher level position that requires a higher rate that brings a specific skill set to the project is worth it for the business, right? It's not, it's a sacrifice from a monetary standpoint in that budget, but it will increase the quality. And we all know in this industry, work begets work. Work does beget work. It may not be an immediate thing, but from a portfolio perspective, you are known based off of your art. And I look at this like, let's just remove film. Let's just stop talking about this industry specifically and like take it to the Renaissance period. There are literally 5 names that you remember off your hand that are famous in that period of time for art, right? And obviously it's cliche, but let's mention Michelangelo, right? Let's talk about the sculpture work and the painting work. Like one of those things he wasn't actually that passionate about, but he was highly sought after for it. And if you study that history a little bit, what you see is from an art standpoint, it didn't matter the time. It didn't matter. He fell in love with the art. He cared about what was represented. And I think if you apply that to different industries and you think about what's represented in your portfolio and you honor the craft, that's something, I feel like that's such a cliche thing because it's very easy to point to one of the greatest artists in history. However, it's a good analogy to think about like actually caring about what you do, even if you don't love the exact discipline or medium in which you're doing it.
Yeah, I think that makes your job worthwhile. It makes life worthwhile, right? It's easy to fall into the like checking the boxes, keeping the lights on, keeping it going. What's the next thing? And get overwhelmed by the logistics of keeping it all going versus like you said, caring.
Yep.
Right.
What can I find
caring,
here that
putting
pleases
yourself
me?
into it? How can I not work from a scarcity functional mindset?
Right.
Well, I was just thinking about like that mindset building trust in clients as well, right? Where, we've won jobs based on saying, hey, we can't honor the creative with that budget or that time frame. And they go, oh, really? What would you do? And you go, this is really how, based on experience, based on, how I would approach this, you really need 10 days on this versus 7, right? That earns trust versus, coming in and say, we could do it in 5 days and save you X amount of dollars. And they go, whoa, like, some things are just impossible to, like you said, honor the creative. So, that experience of when to push back, even if we lost a job based on that, like they might come back to us in the future, but like, cause of an experience that they had, if they went with the lowest bid or they went with someone that said they could do it in 5 days. Yep. And they go, holy cow, like, Taproot was right. This was the right approach for that. And so it's, it's sometimes hard to do in the short term where you feel like, am I leaving money on the table? Am I like not, pushing the envelope far enough? But then, I don't know. I think that that's the right decision long term, which is always the best choice.
You just sparked something that really made me, this is something I've been processing, recently. There's 2 sides to this coin, right? On one side of the coin, you have the production company who is oftentimes at sort of the bottom of the decision tree, where we are a vendor to the client, which could be an agency or a brand, and they have bosses and you're reporting up the ladder, right? But the vendor ultimately is the person who is executing the production company, i.e. we are responsible for what shows up in that frame, what shows up on that device. And when you think about that, you think about all the people that are hired for a production, and just to get to the stage, right? Let's put this in theater context. Just to perform, you have to go through this process on that one side of the coin with the vendor or with the agency or with the client, and you have to do multiple bids. You have to refine your number. You have to refine the creative. You have to make sacrifices. You have to cut some things out. You have to add some things. And ultimately, once it is approved, you are responsible for serving that all the way up the chain. And now you're also responsible for hiring all these people down the chain. So this is the opposite side of the coin. So now we operate on that side of the coin, and all of these people are reporting up to the production company, and they want their rates. They want, specific things. There are negotiations to be had that they want, and they don't know how hard it was to get to the stage. So now we're at the stage, and they, we want to honor everybody's rate. We want to honor the gear that they need. And this is all part of that, what gets served on the frame, right? If you're bringing in the right people, they're going to do a highly specialized skill to help that thing be 10% better in the frame. And the more people you get on your crew that can do 10% better, the better quality product you can serve. So as a business, to tie this full circle to your original question of, is it about the business or is it about the craft, or how do you marry the two and balance those things? You have to look at both sides of that coin. You have to look at who are you bringing up to do that. And you may encounter friction on the crew side, right? Because they don't understand the process that went into winning that, right? And that's why it's so important to have the right people that you can tap for the job. And often what you'll hear, especially in our industry, is that, productions went bad because of this one thing. And it really does often come down to, are the right people in the right place?
Yeah, I think of values too, right? And like maybe spinning it in a different direction. One thing that I thought about earlier was caring for the craft, caring for what shows up on screen, but also caring about how it gets done. And, pushing back not only based on possibility, but also based on advocacy for the people that we're responsible for. For them knowing that we're fighting for them, but then also, then they fight for us, and there's like a relationship not only built with our clients, but built with our vendors, that then allows us to do more, even if it's a smaller job, even if it's, hey, we're going to, we want to have you on this one and it's a good job and people are thankful for that. And then the next one's like, hey, this isn't that last job. This one's a little bit different, like setting the framework. I think a lot of this in my mind falls on like, we have a pulse for like, when a project comes in, like we almost, I'll just kind of jam on the idea of a project and chew on it. Like, what is the right approach for this? And then based on that, then you start thinking of like the right people on the jobs. And then once you're at that point, it's setting an expectation with them, cause there are different levels of jobs that we have, some jobs that have fully kitted out G&E departments and everything else. And sometimes it's like, you got what's in our van on this one. And, I almost look at it as like we set boundaries and then we try as hard as we can within those boundaries, right? Where it's like, you're always going to get 100% of our effort for what we're doing. Like you said, we're responsible. Once we agree upon something, this is a firm bid. I kind of like that. It's like, we're going to deliver on what we promise you here, no matter the cost. Like that's our problem. But I think a level of like caring for the craft on small jobs, big jobs, whatever those limitations are, is like, here's our boundaries. Like, how do we maximize the result within these boundaries? And that allows us to not be unprofitable, to not go out of business, to continue to do work, but also continue to say, you know what, like we can do that. And sometimes like I would rather overgive than like hold things close. I'd rather be like, we kind of like, we served them really well on that one or whatever. Like that's a good problem. Like you were saying,
sometimes it's hard to hold the line too. Like on that boundary, right? If you think of that as a wall, it can get really hard to hold the line, right?
And we've got some clients that will push it until we push back.
Yeah. It's like a hydraulic press kind of, I don't know if there's any material that can survive a hydraulic press, but if so, that's kind of what I think it is.
Hey, we should go find one and try.
You have you just are getting pushed down on, right? Until, it's tact. It's like this thing that is really hard to describe, but I do think it comes from the reps. It just comes from like the experience of like, what this is worth, that this deserves this attention. That's really hard.
But But repeatedly doing that, to your point, to even like turning down work, right, where it can't be done, in the long run, does build confidence and trust and better, more open relationships, right? I mean, the communication that has to happen to work through all those things with clients and crew is significant, right? That's a lot, and I think, I feel like sometimes even with crew, like we win them over like onto our team.
Yeah, you literally just read my mind.
Really?
I literally was just going to say that is one of the most fulfilling parts of the job is winning people over, because they may not believe in you. They may not like you. Not everybody's going to like you, right? Like there's plenty of people who, I've encountered in the business, and like it's a contentious relationship because our personalities don't mesh or whatever it is, right? And that's okay, but if you can win them over, and maybe they win you over too sometimes, and that's like a very
right.
That's such a fulfilling thing, right? Because you don't have to be like best buds, but you can still create great work,
right?
That's pretty cool, because at the end of the day, it's about the work.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, and I also think about
it's probably one of the most rewarding parts of it.
Yeah,
honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not uncommon to hear that I've heard from clients, like, we tried something else and we came back to Taproot because of X, Y, or Z. Like I've heard that multiple times where, we are in some senses, like you said, we're executing, but we really do our best to be more than just a checkbox company for our clients, right?
Yeah.
Like people come to us, even if in their mind it's a checkbox thing, right? Like,
right.
Hey, I've got like this ask from my boss. I got to go do this. This is our budget.
Right.
Let's get it done. I don't want to work any harder. And then like, we really do our best to reject that mentality, and to stay in it is a phrase that we use a lot, right? To like continue to do our best with what we got. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts about
I actually just like, I think it's, it's one thing us saying this, but if you're another video production company, let's say you're watching this, right? And you're struggling, you're like, I can't get out of the checkbox because I can't pay the bills, right? That is a real thing, right? And it sounds privileged from our perspective to say like, yeah, we can do this, we can do that, right? But I do think the sauce or the secret here is really like, you're not going to make every job that 10%, 15% better. You have to find the ones that are worth it. And when you find the ones that are worth it, that's where you invest a little bit more into that, right? Because yes, you do need cash flow. Yes, you do need to be able to pay the bills. Yes, you do need like to just get these check boxes done. Now,
you need to check it, but not only be that.
Right. It is a mindset of like, okay, I've done this corporate video thing 100 times, right? This is interview B-roll. Here's how we're going to do it. But if you care, then you're going to say, okay, like this time it's not going to cost me any more to use this light, and this is the way that I'm going to set up the interview, and this is the way that I'm going to like craft what's in the frame this time. And that level of care is what gets you from that scarcity and I just need to pay the bills to the, opportunity to really, say, hey, in this project, we're going to throw a little bit more at this line.
Or I've been studying and noticing some trends and we want to try something along this lines. Let's shake it up a little bit. This is we see some industry trends. Like let's move BCAM a little bit, more whatever way. And
I just don't want to be perceived as like, we're in this spot of like, yeah, we can make that,
I would speak to the younger production company business owners. Like, I mean, we still have those same challenges. The stakes get higher. It doesn't, you have to invest more to keep it going. It's not like that ends. So you always have the constraints, right? But that's the thing we talk about. Any creative industry talks about, like, the constraints are what you need, right? That's what actually makes it good.
The reality is that in the country, if we're just talking about the United States, there's less than 100 production companies that are working at a super high level that everybody aspires to, that every other production company says, wow, like look at that work, right? And when you're at that level, you are not having to worry as much. Now, in times of slowness, they will probably worry a little bit more, than smaller production companies,
Takes
right?
more to
Well,
keep it
we know
going.
big companies that just laid off
Right.
a lot of people.
There's a lot of
Right.
overhead, right?
Yeah.
And
much
so
larger companies than us, much
exactly
more accomplished. Like,
you have to like, they would say, wow, I wish we were smaller, right? So this is that grass is always greener, mentality. And it's very easy to get into that. But my point here is that like, we're in an industry that there's a handful of people who are doing, or handful of companies doing that level of work. And then there's a tier of companies that are doing almost that level of work, play up there sometimes, play down a little bit sometimes. There's other tiers of companies that are only doing corporate video or only doing social, but maybe they aspire to be there at that point. And I think what we're doing is speaking to that, like, if you want to get to that level, the care matters, the care for the craft matters.
yeah. Yeah. I think it helps you move up if that's the goal. But it helps you run just a good business, right? A successful business. I mean, you have clients that recognize that, and repeat clients, and this industry is huge. So
I think of like, I definitely resonate with that mindset. I think another word that comes to my mind is like faithfulness to our clients. So, really when they come to us, we become advocates for their project and the success of this thing that we're joining with them in. So in terms of like battling for, what the project is, there's still like, that care continuum where we have to like recognize what the ask is, like even clients that come to us with rather large projects sometimes come to us with small ones. But faithfulness in the small projects builds trust for when they have a large budget, they want to come back to you because of the amount of care and attention to detail that you gave them. Again, there's a balance, and there's we don't have the room on this one. Sometimes, clients that are used to big budgets think that they just get that level of service or that level of whatever for like, a really small project. But I think like the mentality of faithfulness in the small things, right? Like affords bigger opportunities and more, bigger opportunities. And then the idea again isn't really like you're always chasing that next project that's going to be different. It's like, here I am today. Here's what I'm tasked with today. I'm going to be faithful at this. I'm going to like work my best to do what I can with what I've got in this set of boundaries. And for sure, it's not a mindset of pride. It's not a mindset of,
we're the best.
We're the best, and we're never going to like settle on anything. We do make like calculated decisions on what is worth it on projects, right? And we need to fit within budget range.
This isn't like the DJ Khaled of video production. We the best.
No, it's we're actually trying to more be vulnerable with the idea of like we do this every day where we struggle. I mean, and sometimes it's like, is this the right decision? And then we kind of like bring it up and chat through it, and we go, I think that sounds reasonable, and we'll see. Like there's a level of like, again, there's still an edge. We're still trying to push the envelope, but then this is what it is. I'm going to be faithful on that. And I think that affords like growth, that affords flexibility when you make mistakes, that affords really servicing the client and caring about the people that you're doing work with. You're not chasing some like, everyone, I feel like there's like a stereotypical like Hollywood director where they don't give a crap about the crew. All they could think about is their vision or their script that they, I've worked on this script for 40 years and some PA comes to me and like, blah, 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 blah. Like I feel like that's kind of a stereotype in the film industry, and that's kind of sad.
There's real people like that though, too.
I'm not saying that there's not.
Stereotypes are for a reason.
Yeah.
Also agreed. But, but the idea of like every small thing matters, within reason, within like a level of faithfulness and discernment on the project. I get excited about that just in terms of, this medium, because there's so much flexibility within that. And I almost look at it as like a puzzle or like a chess game where you're making the right moves and for the position you're in.
What other industry, when you have a product that's delivered, do they not care? I think of, just to put this in a way to understand this, right? It's like, if you put up a bad physical product, if you're in an industry that creates a physical product and it's bad, the marketplace says, I'm not going to buy that because it's bad.
You lose money.
Right. You lose money. And even if you discount the price down to $1 or whatever it is, they're not going to buy it because the product is bad. Why doesn't it work like that in video production? You discount the product so much.
Going back to taste again.
Yeah. Well,
and subjectivity.
I think it's the checkbox. I think when you think about how video is bid and made, right? It's this idea. It's this thing that's out there. They have this idea. They want to make this corporate communications video, and somebody is in charge of that budget and how many videos they can make a year. There might even be a legitimate real checkbox next to that little project task, right? In their project management software. And they say, okay, check. There it is, right? Like, got them. We bid this out 3 times, and here's the lowest bidder. We're going to give that to them. And the product doesn't matter. What industry is like that? Is there another one that has a physical good? Because I don't know of one, right? If you make a bad food product, nope. If you make a bad physical product, a bike, a skateboard, like, what is it that is the decision there? Is it literally just the lowest bid? Because if so, do you even care about being in the industry or just about the paycheck? And I know the answer to that, which is oftentimes people are just about the paycheck. I get that. But I think what I got into it for partly is to help change that, is to help people understand, like, there's value in the craft, there's value in storytelling, there's meaning and there's purpose to be found here, even if it is that corporate communications video. So can we be more than just a checkbox to you? Because if the difference is 10 grand, like, that 10 grand is definitely getting put into the screen. What's in the frame.
Right.
I don't know. That's, a soapbox moment, but what would somebody say to that? Right. If I'm putting myself in the corporate communications person's shoes, they say, well, Josh, I have a budget and you guys didn't meet the budget. It's like, well, that just tells me you don't care about what you're producing. And do you, for instance, do you care about the bike that you're making? Or do you care do you care about the product you're making?
I guess I'm trying to, like, picture it in, like, real examples and experiences that we've had with this. And I think there definitely are checkbox experiences where someone just needed to get it done. I mean, literally been involved in projects where, like, the person who started the project got promoted or went somewhere else and somebody else took over and whole new direction. And, no one cares about this. It's really obvious. No one cares about this. Let's just get it done. Mm-hmm. And they have their budget, right? They have to spend their budget, because next year's coming around or something like that.
Which will do that, right? But, like, this comes off as whiny filmmaker. I get it. It comes off as like, hey, I care about the work. I'm so whiny. I want to make it so good. Like, I get that.
I don't feel that way. I mean, I feel like it's hard to care, right? Again, I speak this because I struggle with it, right? It's like, the grinds of daily life and running a business and payroll and all that stuff, like, cause I work on both ends of that. Right. That can wear on you, and the reminder of why you got into something in the first place. I mean, most people, I don't know the answer to this, but I'd like to think you got into something because there was some interest in it, right? Right. There was, like, you're passionate about it, not just, it's just available, I decided to take it. I mean, that happens, but over the course of time, you try to move towards something that you enjoy. But even stuff you enjoy, you can get beat down on. And I think that finding a way to care helps bring meaning to the work that you're doing. It makes it more enjoyable, frankly, right? If you are trying to really operate from a standpoint of, like, I'm trying to really be effective in whatever, my job is and my task or I have to do. I'm trying to make this as good as it can be for what it is. I'm trying to think about how will people actually receive this and how can it provide value to them. Like, that's very different than thinking about, like, I just got to get this whole checklist done, to hit my quota for the end of the month. And so that's why I guess I feel like we're trying to say, not be whiny about we care for the craft, because we're filmmakers. Right. Like to me, it's like, how do you, like, stay in it, right? Mm-hmm. And we are creating, an art form, basically, like that does have its whole, set of things that go with it. But I don't know. That's my take, I guess.
Yeah, I like it.
I almost look at it as, like, an urge to, like, for others to like, it's almost like, don't you see this could be so good? Or like, don't you see what we could do here?
Yeah.
And I think there is a genuine frustration with feeling like maybe underutilized or, I was kind of chewing on your proposition and putting myself in the shoes of somebody in a corporation with a budget on this and trying to think, say you have $30,000 for a commercial. Knowing what I know, and maybe that's cheat code because I'm in production, right? Like I would say, what do you think, like I would go to a vendor like us and I would say,
what can I get for that?
What can I get?
Yeah.
What can we do with this creative idea for this?
Yeah.
A lot of mimes, I think it might even be just a level of ignorance where like, they just don't ask that question. They don't invite us into saying like, how do I make this budget go the furthest that it can? Because I'm thinking about like, if I was CEO of a corporation and I'm trying to like promote people, I'm looking for a new CMO and there's a marketing manager at my company. And every time I give them a budget that it exceeds my expectations, right? Like I've seen what other people do for $30,000. They're checking boxes. Cool. These projects good. And then someone comes along and this project's really great. Well, how much did we give you for that 30,000? Like, those are the types of people that get promoted, that are handed larger projects, that are leaders of teams, people that are pushing the envelope, that are stewarding what they have, And I think that like, it's more of an urge of like, don't you see that there's an opportunity for you, right? Like, don't you see this? It could be a portfolio thing. Like if we just say like they're triple bidding and their actual budget's 30K, our budget comes in at 29,999 because we want to make it as good as possible. Someone else comes in at 23 and like, we're going to save 7K. It's like, that's where the frustration on my end comes from when it's like, they go to the bottom, not necessarily like we come in at 35 and they can only spend 30 and then they're like, we can only spend 30 on this, but we really want to make this good. Like, then we're like, okay, well, how can we make this 30 for you?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there's a reason, right? The big companies, the big brands have like amazing stuff. Right? It's like the more mature you get, the better it gets, the better expectation, the more it does for the business. Also, I think that's the other thing is like, it can be great for them and their career, but you're probably going to help the business.
Yeah, a ton, right? And
or create something really valuable to put out into the world.
That is one thing I do love about the agency side of the business is that experienced agency producers bring you a range and they say like, hey, here's what we're thinking and here's the creative ask. Like, do you think you can fit inside of this, right? And then, you go off to the races on the bid, right? And the question from my side is always like, are you going to go with the lowest bidder or are you going to go with the person who has the best creative? Like, what kind of job is this for the client? And
that's a great question.
Oftentimes agency producers are sometimes hands tied behind their back because client will say like, we're going to go with the lowest bidder on this, right? Or cost consultant or whatever it is. And just knowing that up front helps a ton, right? Because then I know like, okay,
how much to care?
I got to be on the low end of that range. I still want to make a great creative piece, a good creative idea, but I know the box we have to fit in, right? And when you do it with direct to client, because they don't know the game as well, they often think like if you're asking for a range or if they give you a number that you're going to cheat them, you're going to swindle them, right? And it's like, seriously, like that way of thinking, the scarcity mindset is no benefit to either of us, right? And I just recently had, I don't really know how much I want to spend, right? And it's like, do you not really know? Or do you have a number that
as soon as we give you a bid, you're going to know exactly what that number was supposed to be.
Right, exactly. And that doesn't behoove you. It's wasted time for both you and us. And I think really from just an operating business perspective, that transparency on the forefront allows for more creative ideas to flourish because you have an opportunity to speak into, this is what you can get for this budget. For instance, I just went from a Techno Crane to a Fisher 10 dolly in a bid that I'm working on. And the reason was we had to cut a significant amount out of the budget. So crane op, a head tech, the actual equipment, that cut a significant amount of the budget. Those things can provide creative flexibility in the budgeting process. And it essentially means like from our perspective, if we have a range to hit up front, we can make creative sacrifices or budget sacrifices or, things inside of that realm that will help still fulfill your quote unquote checkbox.
I love that. And I think that honestly, like, when people do give a range, typically they're not looking for the lowest, they're looking for the best value. And
Yeah,
you know,
point.
I think that value doesn't always equal budget or dollars. It's like, what am I getting for what we're spending? Because like, right, like this one project's only a portion of their yearly budget, or however the agency has it, you know, bid out. They're looking for how much momentum can I create with dollars, right? How much value am I receiving? So I think that's a really helpful way to look at it, because, you know, earning trust, again, like kind of calling back to that former conversation about like when we push back, we earn trust in some of that. Like say there's a local client and they have a budget of, we'll just use 30 grand again, because I said it earlier. We have a budget of 30 grand and they want like a social video. It's like, I'm going to go to them and say, hey, you don't need 30 grand for what you're trying to do here. Right. And in the same way,
this has never happened.
I know it's never happened. I'm just saying, like, there's a level of like, sometimes people, I don't know, they think that like a certain thing takes just dollars thrown at it, when like really it's just like you need somebody who knows what they're doing to create value within the budget that you have.
It's funny too, because most of the time, and this is just from,
but yeah, that's never happened.
You know,
A $30,000 social spot.
No.
I don't know. It depends where it's coming from, right? We've gotten...
Well, obviously we would look at that and say there's an expectation here that's beyond just like a typical social spot.
Right.
And that's
usually involves some travel. Let's start there.
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Travel and equipment. But I would say to that is like, the truth is most people don't know what to do with it after they get it. They receive the asset, which is our product. So if we make this analogous to a manufacturing plant, we've just came off the line. The product is finished. We are packaging that product and we have delivered it to you. My analogy here is like, you just took it out of the package and you have no idea what to do with it, right? That happens a lot of the time. And I think for clients who are direct specifically, who do not have agencies in place or do not have, marketing people at the company or whatever it might be, they struggle to get ROI on that. They struggle to like see a return on that investment. And often we get caught in we just spent 30 grand on that video and it didn't, we can't prove anything that it did for us. Right. And I think what I would want, a marketing director or somebody, on that side to hear is that, well, there is a next step in the process. Right. And we can consult on that. We can help you, give you options of like where that can go and why that should go there and where to take that. Or at the very least, we can refer you to people who really know how to do that. I think, that is a unique part of our product, our deliverable, is that we give you a video and it's up to you to learn how to use it. And most of the time they do. I don't want to, sidestep on and speak on both sides of the fence here. If we're on the agency side of things and we're executing for, an agency, they have a very planned campaign and distribution for whatever that is. Yeah. If we're working with direct to clients, there are sometimes,
it depends.
It's oftentimes they don't know, where that's going or how that should live. Right. We did check a box.
Yeah. So what's cool about where our stuff lives, right, in the digital space, is it is all trackable. You can get all kinds of metrics on it.
Yep.
But can I go backwards for a second here?
Yeah.
No.
So I'm going.
He's off the rails, guys.
Well, I was just thinking about what we were talking about earlier, and we're always maximizing budget and thinking, okay, who are some clients then like could listen to this, and what would they say, like their situation. So if I've got somebody that's got, let's say, $200,000 annual marketing budget for video, and they come to us and let's say I've got to get 4 spots out of this year, you guys. What would you say to them? How would you walk them through that?
I love the role play.
Yes, role play.
So I would say, hey, Carl, thanks for coming to us, at least with a stated budget, right? So you said you had $200,000 and you want 4 spots out of that. I
need 4 spots. Really good.
What I'm hearing is,
four really good.
Either really good or like I just gotta get these done.
Well, like I would say, like what do you need them to do? What's the goal here?
I think it's gonna be a brand awareness campaign.
Okay, it's a brand awareness campaign. That's really cool. what are you trying to, what metric are you tracking that will make this successful to you from a brand awareness perspective? Is it amount of views? Is it views? Like if this is broadcast?
Our client has a new facility that they're opening, and we need to drive traffic. So we're going to see, how many people make inquiries and actually sign up.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. So signups would be a metric of success for you.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it'd be a home run for us if we could.
So is this, are you thinking this is going to be more of like a on YouTube pre-roll type of advertisement? Probably not broadcast. Like you want to drive them somewhere, right? Like a landing page. Is that?
I was thinking we'd do some TV. Do like some local broadcast TV.
Okay.
And then we'd use the spots also pre-roll, and maybe if it gets like some shorter cuts out of it too.
So the first thing I would say to that is that's awesome. We definitely want to be a part of that.
Thank you.
From a broadcast perspective, from additional cut downs, that's definitely within the wheelhouse. But the conversation I'd love to have is like creatively, budget really dictates kind of everything that we're able to do. So there may be a spot that we could do for a little bit cheaper. It's not all equal parts, right? Like it probably in your mind you say I have $200,000, like let's split all these up 50, right? To me, that is not really how it works from our side of the industry. So what I'd love to do is do a little bit more of a discovery on what the creative ask is and who on your team is the right person to do that with and what that looks like. Because from my perspective, you could have a spot that costs $100,000 and 3 spots that are split up between the next $100,000, right? Or, you could have a spot that costs 25 and 25 and 25 and maybe you save a little bit just based off of the creative. I don't know what that looks like, but the first thing we need to do is figure out what the creative is, and then we can do that. So here's a little thing. I'm gonna let you go. Let's book the next meeting. Let's set up a discovery meeting. I'm gonna send you a quote for sort of our initial creative discovery, and then we'll move from there. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
And
so So I've got enough. You can do something with that. I can get 4 spots out of that.
I see where you're going with this. Yeah. So, I can confidently say that that's a healthy budget. I don't know if you can get 4 spots out of all of that. I would say let's figure out the creative first.
Depends what the spots are.
Yeah. Let's see what those look like, right? But that is a healthy budget, and I know we can deliver on that. And that's how I would speak to that, right? Like $200K, not the biggest project we ever worked on. Just now cut the role play, right? But like $200K, not the biggest thing we've ever worked on.
You're insulting their budget.
No, yeah. It's one of those things where I would say, and I hope a client is watching this, right? Because what they should receive from that is we want to work with you to figure out where that money is spent the best. And the most bang for your buck is going to come from us discovering what the creative really is, right? And most of the time, I will say this, like from the agency side, you're getting a brief, you're getting a deck, you're getting a script, you're getting something from art directors to give you a sense of creative. Sometimes from the direct client stuff, you're not really getting very much, right? And so that's where our services, like what we have to charge for.
It's hard to get them to say, okay, well, here's creative for 4 spots.
Right.
And then you could really look at those together collectively and say, well, okay, here's the budget, how it would work, even though it's going to be done over time over the year. It's just really hard to get people to do
Problem
that,
is nobody wants to be sold to, right? Like they don't want to be sold in the creative services side. They don't want to be sold this because number one, the most intimidating thing is when you don't understand something, right? So if you're in a corporation and you're tasked with going out and sourcing video vendors, most of the time you lack the education of understanding exactly how it works. So it's already intimidating. Yep. It's already hard to understand. So, and you don't want to be sold to, right? So just give me the quote. Here's an RFP. Give me the quote.
I got my numbers from 3 vendors.
Yep. I'm just going to decide based on the vendor.
Yeah.
What I want to advocate for, what I think we're doing, what I think this podcast is designed for is to further that education, allow those barriers to be broken down. And it's even in the way that we talk to people. Like Nate, you did an awesome job yesterday speaking to a client and just taking that from an immediate objection of like, yep, we're all set to, hey, I get it. Like, I'm not here to like sell you anything you don't need, but I want you to understand where we come from. And I think that's a values thing. It's a heart thing. Where's your heart at? And if they can see that, if people we work with can see that, not just on the client side, but on the crew side too, it's going to be better. And so that would be like the advice for any production company is to just lead with that.
Yeah. I mean, think about, you just said, people call and video production is mysterious, it's intimidating, whatever. Like any type of project you had to take on at home or wherever, right, where you're trying to talk to contractors about something you need done at your house and you don't know, but like one that can really walk you through it and explain
where
why things
come from,
why things cost the way they do. Like it's just a whole nother level of comfort and trust. And then ultimately, I've done this at my own house where like I didn't choose the lowest bid, I chose the one that I thought was going to be, as you said earlier, like the best value and all the factors that go into.
Do you think that most people do that? Like, I feel like on
80% of people, I would say.
Yeah.
Do the what?
They want the best value.
They want the best value.
Oh,
right.
They don't go with the lowest. They don't go with the lowest
if it's
one.
of anything of substance,
it doesn't work like that in film production though, right? Like oftentimes you're going with the lowest bidder. And I would say like, I'm advocating to apply the philosophies you carry out through the rest of your life to the creative services, right? Don't go with the lowest bidder because that is not going to be your best value.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not always.
We can get deep in the weeds, right? The way like some of the agencies are structured with so many layers and people up
Cost
here making
consultants.
decisions that are ultimately driving creative decisions,
Yeah.
It's like a company values thing, really.
Yeah. I think that's why you see agencies like Wyden Kennedy who everybody wants to work at because they put that as at the forefront of like, we're only going to create great work.
You just got to fight for it though.
You got to fight for it. Yeah. And that's what this whole conversation is about, is just like fighting for the craft and fighting for the creative. And I think a lot of the best players in the game, whether that be agency or production company, are the people who are just like taking that stand and like knowing that from a business perspective, there are going to be some mountains that are worth dying on, right? You're going to say like, I'm not going to allow this to get out there unless we do this. Kind of cool.
That's such a great place to end it, I feel. Yeah, I don't know. I think we could continue to chew on this all day. And like we were kind of mentioning earlier, obviously this is an ongoing conversation and even some pushback and some obvious verbal processing going on here. But ultimately, like we kind of started off saying, like our goal is to help you as the viewer to demystify what we do. And really with every single project that comes across our desks, we want to add value. We want to guide you and be a valuable resource in the production process. We really appreciate everybody for watching. Feel free to keep up to date. This is on YouTube and Spotify, right? So give us a follow if you enjoyed it. Share it with somebody that you think might get something from this conversation. Hopefully you guys sensed our humility is a value here at Taproot as well. So again, we want to emphasize we're still figuring it out in some sense, but we do want to bring our experience to the table and maybe let people peek behind the curtain for our mindsets when we approach some of these things. So I definitely learned a lot from you guys in that sense too, and still continue to. So hope you guys got something from this. Feel free to sign up for the newsletter as well, Clip and Clarity newsletter.
Subscribe.
And that's is that by like twice a month?
There's a twice a month Clip and Clarity, and then a Taproot one that you can just click the subscribe button on the website and throw your email address in there. Get the monthly BTS, the project stuff. Would love to see you there. Have the conversation. I think that's something like, please comment. Please continue the conversation. Provide feedback. Like we talked about feedback in this episode. Give us some, interaction here, because that's how all ships rise, right?
Mm-hmm. Don't just call us ugly or something like that. Thanks for watching. I had another thing that is now escaping me that I wanted to say. So I guess we'll just see you next time.
Save that for next time.
Yeah.
See ya.
Oh, actually, came back.
Oh.
Yeah.
If you had any suggestions for even topics for the podcast or guests, people that you think might be interesting to just hear their perspective or anything like that, feel free to reach out either by commenting or go to our website, taprootpictures.com. There's emails, contacts on there. We all get those, so you'll get right in touch with us if you reach out. So
Peace.
Thanks.
Cool.
Yeah.